What is up guys, my name is Dijaji Prime, the ITK, here again with another video. Today we're going to be talking about New York rapper Dave East's latest project, Kairi Chanel. Now, Dave East is a New York rapper, as I said earlier, who has a more traditional New York sound similar to artists such as Joey Badass. He's released a number of mixtapes and has finally gotten that kind of, semi-mainstream acknowledgement. It was featured on Double XL. So going into this project, at first I thought I heard it was an album, but now upon looking further I find out that it's actually a mixtape. Now this will be Dave East's final record on Mass Appeal. He's now signed to Def Jam. So going into this project, I'd give you just a brief overview. If you're just interested in an overview, I would say this is very gritty, very street. This caters to a more specific audience, which is one of the things I'm worried about with Dave East's career, and it's something that he himself, I believe, acknowledges. On a number of tracks he's talking about if you're not broke, you can't relate or understand him. They keep telling him to make a club record. He shouldn't be talking about trapping and so on. So I would say this project, this mixtape, is very gritty. It's quite hard. It talks about drugs, it talks about experience with law enforcement, it talks about the hood, and it talks about relations with women, which we'll be breaking down further on. So I would say my own thoughts on this, an overview thought, I felt like it did stick with one kind of theme, one kind of subject area. There wasn't too much versatility on the part of Dave East, which I think might be a problem. It might keep him, he might not have that mainstream burst, and perhaps he is not looking for that. Perhaps he just wants to cater to a specific demographic or a specific group of people. Nevertheless, I would say that on a broad scale, a lot of these songs didn't exactly stand out. There were about 6 or 7 songs which really stood out to me, which I'd like to break down further. So the initial track, It Was Written, I think this is a very good introduction to this mixtape. I think it does a lot of things. It gives you an insight into Dave East. It is very personal, and it shows a great amount of Dave East's lyrical ability, his ability to structure sentences and words and structure a song. On this track, basically he introduces this track by saying everybody keeps telling him to make a club record. You're not in the trap anymore, no need to make drug records. You have a daughter on the way, you need to be more responsible basically with the content of your music basically. And I think this is a very good song, very good introduction to the project. He also says on this song that artists can't make a song to save their lives, and they're just very good actors. Another song which I liked was Can't Ignore. This is one of the tracks where Dave East shows his versatility, going over a more trappy beat, featuring 2 Chainz. Was quite an enjoyable song. I would say also something Dave East needs to work on a bit more, in my opinion, is his hooks. Hook is, I don't think you can overemphasize the hook of a song, especially in this climate of music where people are just looking for the hook. They aren't really concerned with the verses. Again, perhaps maybe Dave East isn't too concerned with that because he's trying to target a more specific group of people, but I would think that Dave East would like to cater to a wider public. So I think one of the things he needs to work on is definitely working on his hooks. His hooks don't exactly hook you, no pun intended. His hooks don't keep you within the song. It's more of like they sound a bit like verses, or just he's recycling the verse he had already said earlier and trying to make it sound like a hook. So I think definitely a lot of work needs to go in on the hook. Another song which I quite enjoyed, Sending My Love, featuring 7th Streeter. She does a phenomenal job on this hook. Quite a touching song, a more personal song, obviously from Dave East. I love that he goes in and talks about his personal experiences. You get a connection to him as an individual, and he's very open. He's quite elaborate in the way he explains and narrates his story. So very sentimental song, dope hook. 7th Streeter did a phenomenal job on this. The singing was just beautiful, and I enjoyed the song quite a bit. Another song which is quite interesting, Keisha, which tells the story of a rather beautiful lady which Dave East was involved with, he, was narrating the type of person that Keisha is. She had slept around with a lot of people, but hasn't been in a committed relationship because she doesn't fall in love. And then basically, him going to sleep with her and waking up and finding out that he had been robbed of all his possessions. I think that was a very, very descriptive story. To me, probably the most powerful song on this album. Very empowering. It has a nice message to it. I would say for me, the moral more of this message would be you don't necessarily have to be a street nigga. There's nothing wrong with being intelligent and going to school. And I would hope that more artists would try and relay these messages. I think there's too many artists trying to glorify, being in the trap or shooting people. And I think there's also a need for us to empower or to focus more on educating our people. And I think this was definitely a dope song. He talks about how these days you don't see kids, shoveling snow for money, and how older people don't really teach the younger ones these things. He himself is a bit worn out, so he can't exactly preach. But this was a very powerful song. I would hope that this song gets a lot of attention because it's a very powerful song with a very nice meaning, in my opinion. Final two tracks. The last track, I believe, featuring The Game, Bad Boys on Death Row, was a dope track. Nice little ending there. The second to last track, Don't Shoot. I like this song because there's a very clever, vocal transition on this song, which kind of walks you down the path of Dave East from the time he was a very young lad to being the adult that he is now. And he sort of, in essence, narrates his experiences with law enforcement and the society at large. And he talks about, how he had been around 10 years old, how he was with his brother and they were pulled over and his brother didn't know why they were pulled over. Fast forward to him asking his mom about the police, and she's like, don't pay them no attention or just focus on your studies, and the experiences he's had. And he also has a line here that says, they don't answer to us. As a young individual, he was getting profiled because he looked like someone that the police were looking for robbery. So it was a very interesting song. I would say there were a lot of powerful messages, a lot of powerful songs. Certainly in the song like Keisha, which serves as a warning to people, be very careful around these hoes. Another song like Slow Down, like I said, had very powerful meaning. I felt like on this project there were a lot of songs that didn't do it for me. They felt, just meh. But there were some songs that really did it for me, were quite inspiring and had a very positive message, very powerful message. And I would hope that these kinds of songs would be selected to go on his album, because when I was listening to this, my initial perception was this was an album and it kind of sounded like a mixtape. So I wouldn't want going for Dave East's album to sound like a mixtape. I want it to sound, quite original. But this is an okay project. Certainly if you're a fan of Dave East, you'd enjoy this. I'd say if you're a fan of a more traditional New York sound, definitely go for this. If you're a fan of street rap, if you're a fan of, storytelling, if you're a fan of people narrating their experiences around, cops and fuck the police and so on and so forth, this is definitely a project for you. Go out and support this project. I'm looking forward to Dave East's debut album, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like. If you're new around here, why not click subscribe? My name is the Judge Prime. I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.